Hey, hello everyone. Thank you for taking time out of this morning to join us. I'm going to be talking about hiring your first customer success and/or support person. Um, I will be checking the questions after each slide to see if anyone wants to contribute to any of the topics. So we'll see how that works out. I wanted to make it as much like a workshop as possible, but the organizers let me know that we had a lot of signups, so it might not be possible for everyone to like talk and converse. All right, so start at the very beginning, hiring employee number one on your customer success team. A little bit about me. I've been doing customer success for about 6 years now. I'm obsessed with it. I love it, particularly working with B2B products. I co-founded Thrive Network, which is an organization for the professional development of women and gender nonconforming people in customer success. And in my free time, I love to do career coaching, specifically working with people in tech and the startup space. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to my website, and please connect with me on LinkedIn during or after this presentation. Sometimes it takes me some time to get back to respond like messages, but I absolutely answer everybody and love hearing what people think of my presentations. So let's hop into it. So I just wanted to start by pointing out that support and success are like two different things, and you're solving two different problems. So success is an overall mindset. You do want to think about what your customers need the most to be successful, but is it answers to like tech questions and answering support tickets? Is it like quick and transactional? Or do they need like ongoing coaching and training and ultimately a strategic partner to help them get to a renewal or to get to their to get value out of the product? Because the latter is customer success and the former is customer support. And in order to hire one of these, you should have a firm understanding of the following. So your core metrics. In a small company, the company's goals tend to become everyone's goals, but especially client-facing employees. And so um, you want to understand what drives the success of the company and what does your client-facing hero need to do in order to hit those key drivers. So you want to understand your core metrics. The other thing you want to have a good grasp of is a day in the life. Like you want to be able to map out what what the position's time and tasks are going to look like. Do you need a full-time person or not? And this is also like a good practice to figure out the caliber or level of hire needed. If you already have like an ops person who can design all your processes and workflows, maybe you just need someone to roll up their sleeves and hop in the trenches and just answer tickets or just work directly with the clients. But if you're hiring for the first, maybe there's only 2 people in your company and you're realizing you really need someone who can build out a department, maybe you want to go higher level. It all really depends on where you are, and you want to be able to write a job description eventually that lists exactly what you need. And we'll talk about job descriptions at the end of this. So yes, so you want to be able to, map the daily routine and responsibilities. And then you want to have a good understanding of your customer base. If you hire an expert and they come in and you've like tiered your customers and everything, they may completely do it over, but you at least want to have done that work the first go round as a founder or as early employees. Customer success is always there. It just may not have been thought out. So like founders are often the first CSMs and they're the first support reps. And so you don't want to waste the time that you have working in the trenches yourself. You want to be able to do as much of the work as possible to set somebody up for success, or at least to hire out correctly. So you want to tier your customers and understand the level of service the tiers need. This is specifically for like this is especially important for B2B software products because they definitely require customer success, and eventually as they grow we'll have a range of businesses from small, medium to enterprise, and different CSMs specialize in different things, and not every product needs a strategic partner. So even if you not every customer needs a strategic partner. So even if you have like 50 customers, maybe your CSM might only have 5, 10, 20 in their portfolio, and the rest are kind of self-service, or, they just kind of like work out in their own. There's always tiers of behavior. The last thing that I would say to keep in mind is the end of year goal for your customer base. So what's your renewal goal? What's your revenue goal? What sort of things do you want your testimonials and reviews to say? How do you imagine the department being run? All those goals get passed down to the hire. So those are some things that you should definitely think about before you, hire someone to come in. And I wanted to pause here and see if anyone in the audience might want to add something to this list. I'll just give it a few minutes. Okay, I'll be monitoring it, so I'll see it if it comes up. Let's move on to our next thought piece. So how do you source that first CSM? So this is just my 2 cents. I like recommendations. I think it's important to tap your network, especially if you're a founder. Everyone's interviewing, and maybe someone isn't like the right fit for someone's company, they'll be a good fit for yours. So definitely use who you know first. I love AngelList. I love LinkedIn. I love this website called Startup Hire. And then, of course, I want to plug my own group, Thrive Network, especially if, diversity is one of your goals in your team. That group is full of it. And so there's the website. You can head over to thriveincs.com, join the Slack group, post a job description. But I'm using that as an example to also point out that you always want to go where people are looking for professional development. That's where you're going to find like the biggest network of support folks and success folks. And so that's just like my 2 cents. Those are my little tactics. Feel free to drop any of your favorite websites, any of your favorite groups, places you've hired, or places you've even, maybe found a role before. One thing I'll say about the last slide is I was a recruiter for a while. I did work specifically with small startups who were looking to hire some of the first people in their respective departments. And I will say that recruiters can be very helpful if you've never hired before, or if you haven't hired for a specific role before. A good recruiter will help you rewrite your job description to make sure that you've narrowed in on what it is that you want. So I'll definitely plug recruiters there too. So I want to talk a little bit about striking the right balance between support and success. So there's no one size fits all answer to this question. I think it's really important to like know your product. Like, is it a young product? Is it buggy? Are the bugs customer facing at all? Or are your biggest problems just internal and you may not need a full-time person to answer people? You want to assess how many tickets you're already getting if you're looking for a support person. Is that a full-time job? Do you just need a stronger knowledge base? Are there other tactics for support besides hiring a person? Or maybe your product is pretty solid and your support questions are relatively straightforward and you only need like CSMs who can double as support sometime. It's just really important to assess where you are already and understand also the product that you're going to build. Are you going to have a lot more features, and are you going to like tier those features? Do they need to be sold? Do you need account management? Do you need customer success? Do you need more support? It always should come from the product and your internal goals. The second thing is to understand your customer demographics. If you have a product that like young savvy people use, they may not need to call in or like email in and talk to somebody. They might be able to walk themselves through whatever like knowledge base you have and solve their own issues. You might also, there are so many ways to also run customer support. Like you can have your own customers be experts at some point. Like you can't call into Google and get a question answered. Like you have to go into a forum. And so you really have to figure out, who's using your product and who's your core demographic. Are they going to be able to help themselves, or do you need to go the extra mile? And so, yeah, that leads into just knowing your options. There are a lot of ways to run customer support. We've all been customers before. And so you want to think about what approaches you prefer. What are the strengths and flaws of each? And all of this really goes into like the face of your, the face of your product and the face of your company. who's going to carry your voice. And you have to think about that a lot with customer success managers because they hold relationships long term. And so making sure that they're representing, the company in the best light is super important. Um, so I always plug research in pretty much anything I talk about. But I do think it's really important when you're building out a department and trying to figure out that hire to definitely know your options, especially I feel like for the way that these two departments are run, there's a lot of options. Like um, do your CSMs also handle onboarding, um, which is probably going to be the case for a smaller company. And that kind of leads us into our next slide, um, about whether or not you should hire a junior or senior person. So you want to assess your team and your resources. Like I mentioned earlier, if you already have an ops person who's going to be building out systems and processes, maybe you just need someone to pay attention to the customers. Um, but uh, but you should ultimately base your hire on whatever customer goals you set. When we spoke about that earlier, like, do you need someone who can think high level around the overall goals of the business, or someone to just focus on building out like a standard generic CS team or department, or like just to get you guys started? Or do you need someone to like roll up their sleeves and do the work? And most likely you need a mix. You want to think about your budget, of course. Who can you afford to hire? How many people can you afford to hire? And pay fairly for the level of work that you need. A lot of the times your first hire might end up working alongside you. And so, yeah, so I just want to stress that you want to revisit your customer goals, because you really want the CSM to walk into that kind of system a little built out, and you want the support person to be able to have a goal when they walk in as well. So I'll pause here just to make sure that I'm not missing any questions, anything that people want to add. I never assume I'm the only expert in a room, so I love hearing back from the people who attend these talks. So let's chat a little bit about metrics. When you make your first hire, I would suggest you think about them as a department head. Even if you don't hire a high level person, you want to make sure that they have autonomy, and you want to make sure that you have hired someone who can handle your needs, regardless of what those needs are. Like maybe they're not high level needs, but even if they're more mid level or low level needs, that person still runs that department. So the most important metrics to to measure the team on would also be the metrics you're measuring the department on. So for customer support, some really common ones are response time, resolution time, first response time, backlog of tickets, and customer satisfaction scores. For customer success, some popular ones are annual recurring revenue, time to value, an NPS score, which is how likely are you to refer us to someone? Churn rate, which is the rate at which you lose customers. You want to keep that low. And key success drivers. So I think that it's really important when creating metrics to really understand your product and your industry very well. And there are going to be some metrics that are unique to your CS team. One time, so I work in prop tech now. I used to work for a company that centered around leasing, and we had a key success driver that was about the conversion rate of an application to a lease. And that was very specific to our business and what we did, but that was the key metric that our customer success team was measured on. So you want to understand your key success drivers, and those are the metrics that you should prioritize. So I think that the last thing we're going to chat about is writing their job description. So when I got approached to do the presentation, I think the dream would be to come out with a job description that we could pass on to everyone, but that's impossible because your job description should be personalized. So what I did instead was I want to leave you guys with just a formula of what makes a strong job description, in addition to considering all of the things that we chatted about during this presentation. To attract strong candidates, you want a strong company profile. Your profile should be clear what you and your product does, and it should be clear what your company culture is. You want a clear job objective. We're hiring this person to blank. That's how you're going to get the best cover letters. That's how you're going to get the best responses. A lot of people apply to jobs that they're not qualified for because the job description itself is confusing and they're not actually sure. This has been my experience as a career coach. A lot of people have trouble finding jobs that match up, well with them, but my experience as a recruiter, especially working with young companies, is that it's very hard to write a job description. And when you have never hired for something before, it can be very hard to pinpoint exactly what it is that you want. So that's something you should put a lot of work into, as well as having precise job duties. Let someone know what they're walking in on as much as you can. You can definitely get away with that line that says something like, and other job duties as needed. Absolutely. But everything before that should be really well thought out. You want to follow that up with the experience that you need or are looking for. And then you want to end with key traits and values that are required. And those would be traits and values that align with who you are as a company, and who the rest of your team is and the culture that you're trying to build. So all of those things together make a strong job description, but you definitely want to think about everything that we've discussed in this presentation. I'm going to take a few minutes to see if anyone had a question or wants to add, and if not, Love can take it away.
Yep, let's give a minute or so if anyone has any questions.
I see that there are some in the chat. Someone mentioned that finding a pulse on customer happiness and product usage was really vital for determining if the customer was at risk during the renewal process. Absolutely. And I actually support customer satisfaction scores for customer success managers as well. I feel like it's more used for support because it's an easier measurement for them because it's a transactional role. But when you're working long term and you want something deeper than an NPS score, which sometimes doesn't tell you anything if you don't understand your key drivers, it can also be great to just level set the relationship of the CSM and their customers. What are ways to engage customers that have gone dark? So I think that cross collaboration is key here, and you want to start if you're not already, and of course you are, because if you're in customer success, you're working with everyone, but you definitely want to collaborate with marketing. I think that customer success is an amazing department, but we are amazing because of how cross collaborative we can be. I think when I think about I once re-engaged like 80% of a customer base by calling everyone on the phone. It took me weeks, but we got everybody back and up and using our product. And sometimes you have to go the extra mile. I think that's one of the reasons I love working with smaller companies is there's a lot of room to roll up your sleeves and get in there. But I did a co-marketing campaign with these customers, and that got everyone on board. And working with the VP of marketing at that time was super vital to being able to re-engage those customers. So I definitely and another tactic I used also was to start inviting product managers to calls and having someone talk to someone who's on the technical side and give feedback. And whenever you start asking customers to like help you, they get excited to beta test things. They get excited to give their opinion. They want to be heard. So the best way to engage customers in a lot of senses is start asking them questions. And that's what I did when I got on the phone with everyone, was just like, what can we do to make you come back? What are ways, strategies to keep customers faithful to your products? I think you have to know your audience. So I know that, for example, like I said, I work in prop tech. Property managers aren't used to necessarily having customer success managers. And so at one of my jobs, visiting was super key to, building that loyalty and that trust, because no one visited them. No one brought them swag. No one cared enough to like come down and see their properties. Everyone just wanted to sell them something. And so that became our like personal touch, in addition to the fact that we had live people on their campuses and on their properties. And so you definitely want to like know your audience. And then, I mean, at the end of the day, you want to put out a good product. And so customer success in particular is really important, because we become the voice of the customer internally. And so it's really important that if someone gives you feedback, you feed it back into the company and you keep that trust, and you maintain their voice. I'll answer one or two more. Okay, so here's one that's close to my heart. There's a lot of responsibilities for a CS team member, especially at a startup. How do you find you split your time to be the most effective? That depends on what your role was hired for and like what you need. And so the first thing I would do is ask leadership to help you prioritize. And that's why it's important. In my presentation, I was really talking to founders and early employees who are about to hire someone to really take that on. But those early employees are the first CSMs. And so it's just really important that before they hire, they know what their goals are. And so if I were the first CSM, the first thing I'm going to do is ask my leadership to prioritize. And then if they're not sure what to do and I've been hired as the expert, then I would say that the first thing I want to do is like assess where the customers are, and where the pain points are, and handle the hot things first. And that's if you're like fresh on the scene. But I think that like clearly you want to prioritize customers. That should be where most of your, regardless of whether you're support or success, actually most of your focus should be on the customers. And let's say that's 50%, and then you want to 50 to 60%, and then you want to spend the rest of your time building out processes to make your job easier. When I got into CS, there was someone who was like a mentor to me said something like, we're just trying to automate ourselves out of a job. And so CSMs spend a lot of time thinking about process and operation and how to automate, more of their work so that they can spend more time with customers, but also so that customers can have more ease of use with the product itself. So you want to always be thinking about that. And even as a support person, like you want to be, is our knowledge base strong enough? Do I have enough macros for when I need to respond to tickets? Am I spending too much time typing out new messages? You always want to be assessing how much time you spend on things. But at the end of the day, the majority of your time really should be spent handling customer issues. And then the rest of that should be making sure that those issues are minimized or easier to solve in the future. And the last question I'll answer is how to make sure customers are happy. How to start a cold call. So I'll be honest, I don't cold call. That's why I'm not in sales. But so the customer satisfaction score that we talked about, you've probably as a customer done that little smiley face test that just basically asks you how this call went. When you're asking for customer feedback, you want to make it as simple and easy as possible. And so surveying your customers, of course, is the easiest way to go about it, but you don't want to send out a long survey. And that's why an NPS score was made as this effective one question, kind of survey to see how customers are. So, and it's 2020, I wouldn't recommend a cold call. I would just send out a bunch of emails, get the responses that you can get, and follow up with who you know. Follow up with the customers that you know you may get a response from who may want to work deeper with you. But making sure customers are, that's a measurement for it, but ensuring that customers are happy is very different. And I would say that especially for customer success, it's our job to make sure that the company has a customer focused mindset and that everyone in the company understands how their job affects the customer at the end of the day. Even if they never face the customer, it's really important that they know their work trickles down and gets to the customer eventually. And that's how you're going to ensure that your customers stay happy, is by ensuring that people are thinking about them all the time.